Come on, come on. Ooh. Okay, hi there. Just working on a CT125, just doing a quick service on it. I'm out on Thursday with a group. The bikes have all done a few miles to get them running. So I'm just prepping it now. Thought I'd do a quick video because I've been emailed by a chap who's bought one of these and he's a bit unsure about what to check, what to do, etc. So as I'm just servicing it, I've got my beer tonight and I thought I'd do a bit of a walk around video on just the basic things that I'm going to check on this now and pretty much every other day when I go out on it. So first and foremost, tyres. Obviously you want to keep an eye on tyre pressures. The official book recommends 25 from 33, I think, on the back, which is probably a bit lower than I would normally go. I'd normally whack in 30, 35, and that just compensates for maybe a bit of air loss throughout the day or throughout the few days that you're riding the bike between checks. Obviously, you want to keep an eye on it. If you wanted too low a pressure, the bike's going to squirm in the corners and not give the stability that you'd want from it. So it really is important that you keep an eye on the pressures. Less than 25, you want to get it up, get some in. Obviously, keep an eye on tyre wear. Make sure you've got plenty of traction or grip or tread, whatever you want to call it. So, only problem with these rims, painted. So when you do come to change your tyre or get a puncture, they are going to mark a little bit easy unless you use some rim protectors. I generally use, I don't think I've got any around here. No, I just use a bit of inner tube, cut inner tube up and put it in there when I'm levering. But I'm going to do a video on changing tyres on these. So tyres, keep an eye on wheels, important. Chain tension, because Honda put pretty crap chains on these, they stretch out pretty quickly. So you're going to probably have to adjust this chain every 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers or so. It's a pretty easy job. You just need the tools, which Honda obviously don't supply in the kit. Let me have a look. I've had them out somewhere. Where have they gone? Let me just find out. I'm never very organised, but essentially you will need a 14. That's to go on that side, just to stop it spinning. And you undo the nut on the right, which is a 19. So you hold on to the left and then undo this. It's pretty tight. How tight do you go? Just so there's a bit of resistance there. Yeah, I don't use a torque wrench generally. You just get a feel for when it's nipped up. But just give it a bit of a yank. And then you've got the adjuster pins here, or the adjuster bolts, a 10 on the outside, then a 12 there. So you want to back off the 10, that's a locking nut. And then to tighten the chain, I'm finding it's probably quarter of a turn every 100 kilometers or so. That's what I'm pretty much using as a guide, just as a rough average. So get the 12 on that socket, do quarter of a turn. Same on the both sides. So do 1 quarter turn, 1 quarter turn. If it's still a bit loose, another quarter turn, or 1/8 of a turn. But as long as you do both side by side, the idea being to keep the wheel in alignment, which you can check with these markers here. So count the markers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a little bit. As long as it's same on the other side, means it's a lot in line. Then when you're finished, obviously nip that locking nut up against the 12. So you need a 12 and a 10, because you'll need to hold the 12 when you lock up the 10, or else it's going to keep turning the 12. And then tighten the bolt up. In terms of tension, you've really got to make sure it's right when you're sat on the bike with your weight on it. Because when you put weight on the bike, the suspension sags, the chain tightens. So instead of going from the book, I generally just get a feel for it, and you'll do that by a bit of trial and error. But essentially, you want about that much movement. So this is too slack. That's too slack, a little bit, only a little bit, but a little bit slack. But when I sit on it, it'll take up that slack to make it like that. What you don't want is it too tight, because if you set it when there's no weight on it, so it's right in the book, to do it to spec, when you sit on it, certainly if you're a bit heavier or you've got luggage, it's going to be too tight. And that's going to put a strain on the output shaft, which is going to wear that prematurely. Then you give you problems. So whatever you do, check the tension when you're sat on the bike. Sit on the bike, reach down, feel the chain, and adjust accordingly. So it's going to take a little bit of trial and error. It's going to take you coming back, undoing the bolt again, doing it backing it off or tightening it up, starting again. But you've got to get that right, and you've got to keep an eye on it, because it is going to loosen off on these cheap chains. When you upgrade, get a better chain, and it should last a lot longer and with a lot less adjustment. In terms of lubrication on the chain, I just use chainsaw oil. Cheap, £4.50 for a litre. Lasts forever. Just put it in a cup with a paintbrush. Give it a roll. Spin the wheel and give it a paint on the inside. That does the job, as well as a spray can. And it's a lot cheaper than a spray can, so or an aerosol lubricant. In terms of oil check, which is another crucial check on these bikes, on these small capacity bikes, because the sump only holds 0.7 of a litre, which is not a lot. So if it is burning any, which it can do if it's at sustained speed in hot conditions, then it is going to burn some off. So if you haven't checked that oil every day, if you're doing 200 or 300 kilometers a day and you're not checking that oil, there's a very good chance that you could be burning it off and running low on oil, which is then going to seize the engine and cause permanent damage. So when I'm traveling or when I'm out on the bike, I'm doing a daily check on that. Lovely thing on the CT125, it's got a separate filler cap and then a dipstick. To check the oil, put it on the centre stand, make sure both wheels are on the ground, or at least it's level with the ground. Preferably with a warm engine. Just unscrew that. And then you don't screw it back in, you wipe it clean. And then you put it to the edge of the thread. So you don't screw it, but you just push it in as far as it'll go before thread. Pull it out, and you want to make sure it's up that, top of those lines there, about there. So yeah, 0.7 of a litre is what it takes. On the old posties, this one here, they only take 0.7 as well, but there was always a tradition of putting a litre in, and the extra 0.3 just almost worked as a reserve. I'm not saying you do it on this one, but it was a trick on the old one to just give you a bit more comfort zone before you run out of oil. Obviously, overfilling the engine can be as bad as running it low on oil, because then it starts pushing oil into different parts of the engine that it shouldn't be. So you want to keep a good eye on that. And there's no excuse for ruining a bike by not checking oil, because it's a thing that you should always do. And it applies to big bikes as well as it does small bikes. In terms of changing the or dropping the oil, it's a very simple 17-inch bolt just on there. Drop out the drainage bolt. 0.7 should drop out. Measure your 0.7 back in and check it as you go. Sometimes you don't get a full flush of the engine. Maybe there's a bit of oil sat and put on shelves around the engine, or in oil flow pumps or whatever. So you might find it only takes 0.6 to fill it back up to the line on there. Another 0.7 might take it a little bit over the dipstick. But again, probably no problem there. In terms of what oil to use, I don't use anything flash. I just use Smith & Allen. This is a bulk buy purchase. Semi-synthetic 10W40. Honda recommended 10W30. But the little change in viscosity shouldn't make or won't make any big difference here. As long as you've got fresh oil in, that's the main thing. Official service intervals on this bike is 4,000. I think that's a little bit too long for a small CC bike like this. I would say at least every 2,000 you should be checking or changing your oil. So changing your oil at 2,000. As I say, checking it daily or every other day. And just keeping it topped up. So that's it. That's the main things to check on a CT125 to keep it running, to keep it healthy, to keep it fresh. Also, keep it clean. Keeping a bike clean allows you to spot things that might go wrong, whether it's been worn brake pads or loose bolts, loose fasteners or whatever. Just helps to keep on top of things that might give you problems. Also, an air filter in there that's going to need cleaning out, but that's a bit further down the line. So that's it, CT125. We're going to do a video next time just on riding it, because the same guy had the question of, like, when do I change into second? When do I change into third? And it's kind of those questions that you think, well, you should know that, but then actually, no, you shouldn't necessarily know that, because there's no rev indicator. You're expecting people to listen out to the engine and what the engine wants to do. And if you're not tuned in with what a bike engine sounds like or should sound like, there's nothing to say you're nothing to guarantee you're doing it right. So next video, just on basic riding principles, certainly of a small bike, basically, or certainly of a centrifugal clutched bike. So there we go, back to my beer, back to servicing, get some oil in, go to bed. Cheers.